despite a stay-at-home order now just an hour away.
Unless it's for an essential reason, please stay home.
The province declaring its third state of emergency as COVID cases continue to surge, overwhelming hospitals and ICUs. Plus,
we have to get shots in arms in areas where they're needed the most.
Targeting hotspots. The city's plan to bring vaccines into neighborhoods with the highest rates of COVID-19 while lowering the age limit for a dose to 18. And
I'm just really honored to be able to excavate these stories of our community and present them in such a bold and I think new way.
A new public art exhibit at Union Station explores the past, present, and future of the Black experience. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. The province declaring yet another state of emergency today with a stay-at-home order coming into effect at midnight. Now this as COVID-19 numbers continue to surge. Ontario again reporting over 3,000 new cases today with 504 patients in ICUs, just slightly down from yesterday's record. As Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley explains, medical experts say they predicted this.
Some last-minute shopping before Ontario's new state of emergency kicks in 1 minute after midnight tonight. Ontarians are being told to stay home, except to get such things as groceries, medications, or health care. The other exceptions are exercise and doing work that cannot be done remotely. Non-essential retailers will be allowed to stay open, but only for curbside pickup.
To boil it down as simple as possible, folks, please, unless it's for an essential reason, please stay home.
The government's own science advisors called for a stay-at-home order last Wednesday.
Well, here we are today, just getting a lockdown 1 week later. And unfortunately, with exponential growth, that 1 week is a huge difference.
The move comes only after fierce pressure from people across the health system.
We are seeing our hospitals really full to the brim.
This is the biggest crisis in modern Ontario hospital history.
We're in a troubling spot in Ontario, so the status quo isn't sustainable, and something needs to be done.
Today, Premier Doug Ford, his health minister, and the chief medical officer repeatedly tried to justify the delay by saying the third wave is surging faster than they expected.
The reality is, despite everything we've done so far, the COVID-19 situation in Ontario is getting worse.
The ICU admissions went up quite rapidly that we didn't see and anticipate.
In late February, the government's advisors called the next few weeks critical and warned of the risk of a third wave. By mid-March, the increase of cases and the spread of variants was clear, yet the government announced looser restrictions. Last week, the advisors called for the stay-at-home order that didn't come until today.
Quite frankly, we were alarmed weeks ago, as were many of my colleagues in the critical care emergency health sectors in the province.
Admissions to ICUs in the past week are increasing faster than the worst case scenario predicted by our experts.
But that's not actually true. The modelers' forecasts for intensive care patients are proving bang on.
The data suggested that we were going to be in this scenario several weeks ago, and so it was predicted.
The stay-at-home order is similar to what was imposed in January. One difference, in-person shopping at discount and big box stores will be restricted to only essential items. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
The push to vaccinate Ontarians ramped up today. The new plan includes a more targeted approach focusing on COVID-19 hotspots, where anyone 18 or older will be eligible for a shot. For more on this, let's go live to Ali Chiasson, who's out in one of the many neighborhoods in Toronto that's on the list. Ali, what can you tell us about how this is all going to work?
So, Kelda, the plan is, as you said, at some point in these next few weeks of the phase 2 of this vaccination rollout, we will see people 18 years and older eligible for a shot in what's called hotspot neighborhoods or priority neighborhoods. And that is something that's going to be determined by high case counts, hospitalizations, and large concentrations of essential workers. A lot of the details are still being worked out, but here's what we know so far.
We're going to take vaccines to the neighborhoods where essential workers live and where they work.
The next phase of this vaccination rollout will be more nimble.
By taking vaccines to them through expanded pop-up and mobile clinics.
honing in on neighborhoods like Thorncliffe Park, communities in Toronto's northwest to Scarborough. The city has identified 111 priority neighborhoods where the age of eligibility for the vaccine will drop to 18 and older at some point in phase 2. Parts of Peel and York region will do the same.
I think it's the right thing to do from an ethical standpoint. These are communities that have bore the brunt of this pandemic. But B, from a public health standpoint, you actually quell the pandemic faster because you're pouring the water where the fire is hottest.
Mobile vaccine units will bring the clinic to the people.
For example, they might go to factory settings or other occupational settings. They might set up outside of large residential areas. They might set up in, for example, religious or cultural institutions where people might be more comfortable going to. And anyone who's 18 years of age and older who lives in that area will be eligible for vaccination.
How do the young folks feel? We chatted with people near York University.
It's basically needs-based, right? Like old people first and people in more vulnerable areas first. So yeah, it makes sense to me.
Especially with like universities and stuff where you have people coming from different cities to the same place. Like, yeah.
We just had a conversation like maybe 10 minutes ago saying, I don't know when I'm going to get vaccinated because I don't fall in the priority order, I'm sure. But yeah, it's good to know that we're getting it at the doorstep.
Yeah, and now you would fall into that.
Yep, that's good to hear.
So even though this was announced today, a lot of the logistics, like I said, are still being worked out. So we have yet to know exactly when this is going to mobilize and how this younger age bracket will be registering. And we're expecting perhaps a list of these prioritized neighborhoods. But in the meantime, we can at least tell you that starting this Friday in the city of Toronto, in some of these priority neighborhoods, people ages 50 and up will be able to register for a vaccine at one of the city's mass vaccination clinics. Send it back to you, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Ali. That's our Ali Chiasson reporting live for us tonight. Teachers in Toronto and Peel will be able to get a vaccine as soon as next week. So will any special education workers across the province. But the union representing transit workers isn't sure whether their staff will be up soon.
Our infection rates are astronomical. We have a very complex integrated system where we could provide vaccines in bus garages, in depots, and I have not heard or been involved in any discussions on a master plan on how to get transit professionals vaccinated.
Danino says more than 700 TTC staff have been infected over the course of the pandemic. He says paid sick days taken away by the Ford government when it came to power are needed. And despite calls from doctors on the front lines, mayors, and even his own science table, the province is once again not introducing paid sick leave. The premier was on the defensive about that today.
My message to the opposition and everyone else, because there's a lot of people that are playing politics right now, and it's totally irresponsible. They're doing a disservice to the people that they're telling this to. There's paid sick leave from the federal government.
The benefit from the federal government is not the same as getting paid sick days. The Canada Recovery Sickness Benefit isn't automatic and only compensates you after you've already lost pay. It also pays out lower than minimum wage at a maximum of $500 per week for up to 2 weeks. Paid sick days would be automatic and would allow workers to take a day off if they're feeling sick and not lose any pay. If you'd like to sign up for the federal benefit, you can head to canada.ca/COVID-19.
Well, we are into a more active weather pattern, although you wouldn't necessarily know it tonight and most of tomorrow, so do enjoy that because otherwise kind of every few days we're getting into a chance of some showers. Mostly clear skies, however, tonight, tomorrow, the easterly winds again, a little cooler near the lake, but otherwise warmer air moving in, and I mean warmer than today. Yeah, you're still going to be in southwestern Ontario in those mid-20s, but we're going to see some 20s popping up around the GTA now as well. Now, mostly sunny, a little extra cloud cover coming into southwestern Ontario into the afternoon, and then some scattered showers and even a few embedded thunderstorms developing there. However, it's going to take longer for that to reach the GTA, so staying dry through the day tomorrow. Then as we get into the overnight tomorrow night and Friday, we'll see some showers developing I'll have more on that coming up. Just know that tonight 9 degrees is your low, and tomorrow we should see a high of 19 degrees. We'll talk about how this warm air is going to stick around or not coming up.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
A teenager has been charged with arson and stunt driving after a street racing rally in North York.
Sunday morning, we received a radio call to go to McNichol and Placer Court in North York. And what we had there was a person in the middle of the intersection doing donuts, if you will, and what people are describing as a ring of fire. They had set fire to the road, and somebody was doing circles in the middle of that. When officers arrived on scene, the first car that arrived on scene, the officers were surrounded by the large crowd, and eventually everybody dispersed.
An hour later, near the Toronto Zoo, police say many people from the same group gathered and did similar things. 19 people were charged under the Reopening Ontario Act. Police say 19-year-old Joshua Goodale Chapman was driving the car doing donuts. He has been charged with dangerous operation, arson, stunt driving, and failing to comply with pandemic restrictions. The vehicle he allegedly used was also impounded. Police are asking for your help in identifying 2 suspects who were also there. A woman in her 20s seen with a fur coat, and this man in a red hoodie. Anyone with information is asked to contact police. Ryerson's Faculty of Law is getting a name change. It will now be called the Lincoln Alexander School of Law at Ryerson University. Alexander was the first Black person to be elected to the House of Commons, to serve as a federal cabinet minister, and to be appointed Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. He died in 2012 at the age of 90. The renaming will be made official during a virtual celebration next month.
To not know where you're going to live from year to year is especially in a city like this where there is no available housing.
After the break, a community group in Kensington Market is asking the city to help protect residents worried they'll be evicted. We'll hear more from one resident about his 2-year fight to stay in his home coming up. A community organization is asking the city to help protect a number of residents who are worried about being evicted from their homes. For the past 2 years, residents of a building in Kensington have been fighting developers who want them out. Now those developers are selling the building. And as our Greg Ross reports, residents want the city to ensure it doesn't fall into the wrong hands.
This is our neighborhood. We've lived here. This is Kensington Market.
Greg Harrington has lived at 54 Kensington Avenue for the past 13 years. But for the last 2, he says he's lived under the threat of eviction.
To not know where you're going to live from year to year is especially in a city like this where there is no available housing, it's very concerning.
Residents here say they received eviction notices on New Year's Day of 2019, giving them just 3 months to vacate the building. New owners had just taken over, and they had plans to redevelop it. Because of rent controls in the city, Harrington's rent is far below market value, and he's worried he'd have no choice but to leave the city if he lost his apartment.
It's very scary to get an eviction notice like that.
Dominique Russell is the co-chair of a group called Kensington Market Community Land Trust. At the time, she and other community members stepped in to help.
We organized immediately and supported those tenants.
They were able to help them get legal advice. And after a battle that lasted nearly 2 years, the owners of the building have decided to sell once again. Russell says the Kensington Market Community Land Trust has a plan to ensure the same thing doesn't happen again.
We are trying to buy this building in order to assure in perpetuity that it is affordable, that the tenants get to stay, and that the land will be in community hands.
They took the issue to the city for help.
They contacted us and say, look, we found this property that's gone up for sale. We would like support in maintaining it as affordable housing.
City Councillor Mike Layton is asking the city to pitch in $3 million.
There is some local development related funding in Ward 11 coming from large developments. That's money set aside for affordable housing.
City Council will vote on a motion tomorrow. If it passes, Harrington says after 2 years, he'll finally be able to breathe a sigh of relief.
Knowing this would mean the landlord can't sell it to somebody who would just try to do the same thing the moment they get here, try to think of throwing people out.
Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Matthews stays out, swoops, scores! It's number 28 for Austin Matthews.
The Leafs getting off to an early lead tonight against the Habs. Austin Matthews scoring 54 seconds into the game. It didn't take long for the Canadians to tie it up, though. Corey Perry scoring about a minute later. That was it until the third period, with the Leafs adding 2 more goals to win the game, 3-2. And it's their 5th straight win and goalie Jack Campbell's franchise record 10th straight victory. The win comes without William Nylander, who was benched after a possible COVID exposure. And the Jays taking on the Rangers in an afternoon game today. Texas getting on the scoreboard first with a solo home run in the second. And the Jays didn't answer back until the bottom of the 8th. Marcus Semien hitting a solo homer into the second deck. But it wasn't enough. Texas winning both the game and the series 2-1. The Jays now fly to Dunedin, Florida, where they will hold their home opener against the LA Angels tomorrow night. Mostly clear skies tonight, remaining clear overnight. How about this weather? I didn't even need a jacket tonight. Currently, it's 14 degrees downtown. Colette Kennedy joins us now with a look at the forecast. And Colette, we are getting spoiled with this weather. I mean, these temperatures, it feels more like a day in May.
It does. That's exactly right. We're seeing these temperatures that are closer to seasonal highs in that month and not early in April. And we're sticking in the mild pattern at least for another week. Then there are going to be some changes. We do have a more active pattern, though, with our weather and systems kind of coming through. So enjoy when we get these dry periods like we're seeing tonight. And for most of the day tomorrow, too, it's going to be even warmer with those temperatures heating up. But then overnight Thursday into Friday morning, we get into some showery activity. And how about that weekend outlook? I already gave that away. Yeah, I said it stays mild, above seasonal anyway, until about Wednesday of next week, and then we'll see the temperatures coming back to seasonal or even falling below. The daytime highs today, would you look at this? Windsor 27, 26, Sarnia, London at 22, and yeah, a few upper teens showing up around the Golden Horseshoe as well. There's that mostly clear pattern tonight, and the sunshine then for tomorrow until we get into the afternoon hours. Then some showers and thunderstorms begin to develop and move into southwestern Ontario. And then eventually we'll see some of that activity trying to push towards the GTA. But what happens is it also weakens somewhat and loses some of its organization. So the cloud cover gets here. Yes, there'll be a few showers. Not likely that we'll see the thunderstorm activity Friday morning. However, as we get some sunshine into Friday afternoon, that means that could add to some of the energy, and then a few isolated thunderstorms pop up later for Friday afternoon or into the early evening hours there. So a look at your overnight temperatures here. Yeah, mild once again for southwestern Ontario, and mild once again tomorrow. Just remember, late day, we'll see some activity coming your way. For the Golden Horseshoe, the temperatures tonight, these are closer to what daytime highs should be at this time of year. And then tomorrow afternoon, Markham, I've got you to at least 21. Lots of upper teens here, 21 as well for St. Catharines and Oshawa. We'll see if we can do that 20 as well. With the afternoon sun, should warm up again towards those upper teens Friday. Depends on the timing there, those clouds clearing. And then Saturday, kind of a split decision between the high temperatures, but also wet and dry conditions, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Still to come, a new public art exhibit at Union Station explores what it means to be Black in this moment in time and the conditions that shape Black lives. If you're a downtown commuter, you may have noticed a new public art exhibit inside Union Station. Located in the West Wing, the exhibit Here Again at the Crossroads features the work of several contemporary Black artists, each of their pieces exploring the conditions that shape Black lives. I spoke with curator Alika Hall and artist Jordan Sook about what these works mean to them.
Here Again at the Crossroads really explores Union Station as a place that people are going through every day, and yet also has this really rich history. And so I wanted to explore the station as well as its intersection with the Black community.
Alika Hall is the curator of the exhibit, featuring the works of 3 artists, including Jordan Sook. His piece, titled "Thank You for Keeping Us on Track," is a tribute to Black Canadian railway porters, who in 1917 formed the first Black railway union in North America.
It's a 15-foot tall sculpture comprised of roughly 22 to 2,300 hats. Each hat has been individually textured, sprayed, and painted to give a coal-like or gravel-like appearance. So from far off, it looks like a mound of texture, but as you get closer to it, you realize that it's a pile of hats.
What did you want it to convey?
I wanted this work to convey a feeling of confidence, a feeling of self, a feeling of community and collectiveness. I definitely feel that I have a spiritual connection to the work, being a Black male myself, in that, 100 years ago, it's very likely that I could have worked on this very railway.
But what's beautiful about each of the hats representing a railway porter and their families, these are people who push for change in their everyday lives, right? They were just regular working class folks. And too often we don't know those stories, and we don't realize how much of their very existence meant that society had to adjust and change. And so that's what I see as really beautiful.
Also on display, 3 10-foot pieces of photography by Brooklyn-based photographer Andre Wagner, depicting the realities of being Black in America.
I selected him because he has such a stunning eye of capturing vulnerability. There's so much emotion and nuance in his photographs.
Finally, there is a poem by Afro-Indigenous poet Jada Marley, displayed on large posters entitled "A Ticket to the Revolution."
For generations we have been traveling. Now it is time to get home. For generations, we have been building a society never meant for us. This time, we are choosing the places that we will go.
We commissioned her to do a piece that speaks to the ways in which Black communities tend to build up cities that they're never really a part of. Her poem speaks to that displacement, a feeling like you live in a city, you're part of a diaspora already, so you don't quite feel like you belong. But what's beautiful about her piece is she also speaks to the future and points to the need for Black people to have that independence and liberation, to be able to construct a future for their own.
I think what you're seeing within the 3 works is a past, present, and a future.
I'm just really honored to be able to excavate these stories of our community and present them in such a bold and I think new way.
The exhibit runs until May 31st. You can also visit it virtually by going to the Union Station website. That is our show for you tonight. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.